stop buying this GPU. Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is Boost My Build, the series where we take your PC build list, we tear them up, we put them back together and massively increase your performance. And my goodness, all of you out there who want to buy these crazy GPUs, it's time I stopped you. That's right, we've got two insane builds. Both at $1,000, but very different approaches on each one. We're gonna take you through how to build an amazing gaming PC at 1440p for $1,000, either right now or with the new GPUs. Remember, if you get value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content. With that, let's jump into it. This video is sponsored by Delete Me, my go-to solution to stop data brokers selling my data. I was getting tons of spam calls and emails, but then I got Delete Me, and wow, what a difference. My spam calls have almost completely stopped, and my spam email is way down. Delete Me sends me monthly protection reports showing that I've been removed from 51 data brokers with 9 more in the works. Taking control of my data protection was a game changer with Delete Me, and it can be for you too, by going to joindeleteme.com/PC20 and using promo code PC20 at checkout, or use the link in the description to receive 20% off a protection plan today. All right, we've got what is a $1,000 USD budget? They're in the US, and the budget's for the PC only. They do not need a monitor. My younger brother's finally getting rid of a PS4. They're not gonna go with the PS5 or the PS5 Pro route. They wanna play competitive shooters like Fortnite, Apex, Call of Duty, and others. You say and others, I don't know if that includes like single player titles as well. We'll just assume it's kind of a wide berth of games, but focused on like Fortnite, Apex, and Call of Duty. Let's see what you got. Oh my goodness. No. I just look at this and it pains me. It hurts so bad to look at this level of performance. You finish out at $1,073.90. And I'm gonna give you a little credit. I'm filming this around like the holiday shopping season, and I know that prices are going crazy right now. Things are selling out. And I see a couple of parts in here that probably were good values when you selected them, but have sold out, so the price is some third-party seller selling it for a crazy price. However, I still absolutely hate this build. I hate this build. If you put it all together, would it work just fine? And probably in some of the titles you're talking about, it would perform okay, and you'd probably think, oh, this is okay right now, but you could do a lot better. And that's a hard thing about building a gaming PC sometimes. You don't really realize the value that you've lost because you just put it together and you're like, oh, this is okay. It's not as good as I was hoping for, but yeah, the reason it's not as good as you're hoping for because it's not really performing as well as you should have gotten for $1,000. You finished out at $1,073.90, even giving you some credit for some of those parts I see, like your motherboard, that are probably were good value when you picked them, but have now gone out of stock. I don't think you would have gotten this build under $1,000 the way you've configured it here. And I think our number one problem here is the GPU. Now you spent $300 on an RTX 4060 8GB, and just saying 8GB out loud, it just kind of like, it almost gives me a heart attack here because it's 2025. It's practically 2025 as we're filming this year. We are expecting new GPU announcements from AMD and from NVIDIA, although we're probably not going to get a 5060 anytime soon. It might be teased at CES at 2025, but I don't expect that they're going to announce the 5060, probably just down to the 5070. And so this is probably not in your price range for that, but AMD is more than likely going to announce maybe an RX 9060 XT. I hate that they're changing the name on it. And Intel also just announced really competitive GPUs. That being said, there's also last generation GPUs that are way more competitive than the 4060. What's my big problem with the 4060? 8GB of VRAM. Now, in those competitive shooters, that's plenty of VRAM. However, if you ever want to play anything else, it's not enough VRAM. And I would say, why not get a GPU that has similar levels of gaming performance in terms of rasterization and at the same time gives you enough VRAM. So if you want to play a single player title like a Hogwarts Legacy kind of game out there, you're basically not going to be bottlenecked by the VRAM out there. That's my big thing. The other thing is for $1,000, we should be spending probably a little bit more on our GPU here. Let's jump into the rest of the build here. You went with the Ryzen 5700X 3D, and the problem with this processor is the price has gone a little bit crazy. I don't know if there's a shortage of these things. I don't know if it's basically kind of this is the end of the X3D CPUs for AM4 right now, because the 5800X 3D obviously is relatively sold out everywhere. You can't really find it for any kind of reasonable price. The 5700X 3D had gotten all the way down to like $180-ish during Black Friday and everything. Now it's back to $220. At $220, it's just not competitive for a new build. A new build with like a Ryzen 7600, just not really that competitive. It's on a dead platform. I say dead platform. It still would give you good performance, but it's on a non-upgradable platform as well. So I absolutely don't love this for new build. First of all, this is a really nice cooler. The NZXT Kraken 240. Now, some people say, oh, NZXT, they're evil. Yes, they were doing evil stuff. I'm not talking about them as a company. I'm talking about this particular cooler. It's a nice cooler, and it's got the LCD screen on it, and it's one of the cheaper LCD screen coolers out there for $130. I mean, look at that. That's pretty cool, right? We used to make fun of them all the time saying, oh, it's the NZXT virus. And this is kind of the NZXT virus right here. $1,000, you really don't have enough budget to do stuff like this. Unless this is like your one splurge item, because you have to have that LCD screen. I would say we can get a way cheaper and better cooler than this for 130 bucks. For the motherboard, we've just got a really ho-hum motherboard, the Gigabyte B550M Aorus Elite AX. This is basically the Gigabyte B550M DS3H Wi-Fi with different styling on it, because they are identical boards in terms of their feature set. The only real difference here is it's got the Aorus branding on it. It's got an Aorus VRM heatsink on it. And I will say the top GPU slot is reinforced, which came in really handy. A couple of builds I've done recently with thicker GPUs, it almost feels like it's gonna snap off. So I do like the reinforcement here, but $149, obviously that's totally insane. AM5 motherboards are cheaper than this, let alone AM4 motherboards, so we could definitely do better. For the RAM, again, I'm seeing out of stock. I think that's what happened here. Corsair Vengeance RGB, now 32 gigs, DDR4, 3600 CL18. It's essentially the same speed as 3200 CL16, by the way, there's just identical speeds. $89. This is like DDR5 pricing. You can get non-RGB versions of this RAM for like, I think like $43 or 40 bucks, something just crazy, about half the price. If we're gonna spend this much, we're basically spending as much on our entire build right now as we would for AM5. I would just go with AM5. Here's another thing I absolutely hate. $1,000 build should not come with a 512 gigabyte NVMe SSD. We want at least 1 terabyte. 1 terabyte is kind of the minimum in 2025 and going forward. Games are getting bigger and bigger all the time. Yes, could you squeeze by with 512 gigs and could you add another drive later? Of course you could, of course, but let's just do it right now because you actually get a better price per terabyte by buying 1 or 2 terabyte drives than you do with a 512 gig. I'm definitely bitten by the NZXT virus here. This is the NZXT H5 Flow. I know a lot of people love this case. However, I just want you to know, and it does seem like you're kind of going with, you know, NZXT everything, right? The NZXT virus a little bit. $69 is not a bad price for this case, but it only comes with 2 black fans, one in the front and one in the rear. Not really enough for our airflow. And you're gonna have to get more fans for it, or we're gonna have to go with a different kind of case direction here. Power supply, absolutely great. MSI Mag A750GL. This is a A-tier rated unit. I will say that it's been hard to find. It's been completely out of stock. It's been back ordered a lot of places. So right now it looks like the best we can do is about $89 for this unit. We don't necessarily need 750 watts. Depending on how we spec out the build, we might be able to get away with a cheaper power supply, but otherwise this is a good unit. All told, for $1,073.90, we are getting an RTX 4060. Let this sink in. You can buy a pre-built with similar specs, except maybe not the liquid cooler. It's gonna cost you like $750. So we're spending $200, $300 more than a pre-built will, and we still have to build the thing and take care of it ourselves. I think we can do a lot better. The $1,000 2025 1440p gaming PC build, because we are gonna, for $1,000, actually game at 1440p in 2025, including everything that requires like VRAM, and we're gonna give you an upgradable platform as well. I'm super excited about this one. I actually finished at $941.15, and I'm gonna give you pretty wide latitude on what else the GPU. So let's just go ahead and start there. Now in this particular build, I've spec'd it out with a 7700 XT 12 gigabyte for $389. And I am well aware that that is not a fantastic price for that GPU. If you just do not wanna wait, that is the one I would probably pick up. Another good deal right now, the Power Color Fighter RX 7800 XT 16 gigabyte for $429. Now this doesn't get delivered, I think, until like mid-January right now. Both these linked down in the video description. This is if you just, Jason, I just don't want to wait. I want to buy something right now. I don't want to wait until probably the end of January for AMD to launch kind of more mid-range GPUs. But this is about how much you should be spending on your GPU, $400 to $500 in this price range. Obviously, we're also waiting for AMD to announce their next generation of mid-range gaming GPUs. I don't expect you're going to be able to afford an RTX 5070, and that is the lowest level GPU I do expect NVIDIA to announce. Other good options out there, again, here's the GPU I went with, the $389 7700 XT. These did get down to like $349 with a free game during Amazon Prime Day. You can't go back in a time machine, obviously, and get that particular deal. You have to take advantage of what's here. I do think, though, that these GPUs may go a little bit cheaper after the new ones get announced, so maybe that's another reason to hold out. Also, I expect stocks of these to come back. Right now, everything is just sold through because everyone's been buying like crazy. Other particular options, if you just decide you don't want to spend $1,000, hey, the 6700 XT is back in stock in the US at $299. It's a way better GPU than the 4068 gigabyte, way better. It's way faster as well as having 12 gigs of VRAM. Another great GPU to look at is the Arc B580. We're gonna do a video on this. I absolutely love it. In fact, I got a build with it right over here. I was able to pick one up at retail, and Intel did not send me a GPU. I was actually able to pick one up at retail. That being said, I know they've been very, very hard to come by. And then if you just want NVIDIA, you have really two options. It's go with an RTX 3060 12 gigabyte for $279 or $269 with a promo code, or you could go with a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte GPU for about $450, although there are only a handful of those models left. It's possible by the time this video goes live, they won't even be there for you. So how much performance should you expect for about $1,000? Well, depending on how much the GPU is. The great news is this is the TechSpot B580 GPU review. So very, very fresh data. I will say in this particular one, their 12 game average at 1440p ultra settings, they used a pretty brutal set of 12 games here. That's why, like normally you'd see the RTX 3060 12 gigabyte at the bottom, closer to 60 FPS, but you see it at 44. Now you're looking to play competitive shooters where you're gonna turn all those settings down. This is your absolute minimum on really hard to run single player titles that are super GPU intensive. If you're gonna play Fortnite, League of Legends, all those kinds of much more lightweight games out there where you're gonna turn down competitive settings, you're gonna get way more frames in this. But you can definitely see a gap here between the RTX 3060 at 44 average FPS, then you got the 4060 and 7600 kind of sitting around 50 to ish frames out there, although the 1% low is not that fantastic. Then you jump up to like the RX 7600 XT. The 6700 XT is the one we recommended if you don't want to spend that kind of money. 54 average FPS, 44 on the 1% lows. Again, this is a brutal set of games that they used. The Arc B580, look at that, 57 average, just under 60, and the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte 65, that's if you want NVIDIA. The 7700 XT jumps up to 72 average FPS, and the 7800 XT is faster than a 4070, so you get well in excess of 83 average FPS out there if that's what you're looking to spend. Let's jump through the rest of the build. I know you wanted to go with the 5700 X3D. I want to convince you to go to AM5. Not only are you going to get an upgradable platform, but look at this insane deal for cheaper than the 5700 X3D. You get the Ryzen 5 7600X at Newegg. At Newegg, by the way, so the link down in the video description. I'll actually link the full build as well. $224. You're like, Jason, that's the same price. $30 promo code, so now we're down to $194. You're like, oh, that's not bad, that's not bad. But wait, there's a lot more. If you buy it right now, at least I think this is going to go through the end of the year, 1 terabyte NVMe SSD for free. For free. It's the Team Group MP44L, perfectly fine. It's a $56 value. The Ryzen 7600 X then becomes like a $144 CPU, which is, that is totally crazy. Snap this deal up right now. By the way, all of you out there who want to build a mid-range gaming PC and you can't afford a 9800 X3D, grab this right now and just stick it in your closet until you get the GPU you want. The motherboards just have sold out right now over the Christmas holiday shopping season. The Gigabyte B650M Gaming Plus, kind of it's the last good one standing. This is usually my third choice. Still a fine motherboard. The VRMs aren't exactly where where I'd like them to be, but it would take a 9800X 3D. It's not something you really need to worry about unless you're going to put like a 9950X and overclock it or something crazy. $140, not bad. It comes with Wi-Fi, kind of everything you need. I will say, double check the links in the video description. I'll include these. These are the boards I had been recommending, which is the ASRock B650M Pro RS and the Pro RS Wi-Fi. I prefer the Wi-Fi because you also get the Bluetooth with it for only $10 more. It seems like a great deal. And we just used it in our build over here. It wasn't in stock yesterday, out of stock today. They are shuffling more in there, so double check those links in the video description. For the cooler, look, I know you wanted that big liquid cooler. You can always add that in the future. In the future, I'm gonna go with just something really performative right now for the price, $18.99 for the ID Cooling SE214XT. This is an ARGB one. You can also get the all white version, which is actually what we are using in our Intel build over here. Great cooler for Ryzen 7600X. If you don't like this one, if you want to go with the Thermalright coolers, they have like a half dozen of these budget tower air coolers. There's the Cooler Master Halo, Hyper 212, another good one for about $30. Looks fantastic. All of those are great budget coolers for 7600X. For the RAM, look at this. For the same price that you were gonna get DDR4 32 gigabytes, we're gonna get 32 gigabytes of DDR5 6000 CL30. That is how far RAM prices have fallen for DDR5 over the holiday shopping season. This RAM before was going for about $110. Now it's down to $85. 2 thumbs up there. Silicon Power RGB kit for just $86. For the case, I just did something super basic. I went with the BitPhoenix Nova Mesh. This is a case that's done really well for us, $59. We've done a number of builds on them. We usually pick the white cases because they show up better on the camera, but the black ones look nice as well. And these are very, very nice to build in as well. We have seen a number of the other cases that we had been recommending for about $59 that were more Atrium style. They've completely either gone out of stock or they're selling for like higher prices, but I will leave a couple of alternatives linked down in the video description. Maybe they'll come back in stock. For the power supply, I just dropped it down to the MSI Mag A650BN. We really don't need that much power with a Ryzen 7600 on this, to be quite honest. The 5700X3D is way more aggressive in terms of the amount of power it uses. It's still not bad, but the 7600X is just basically sips power in comparison. $69 right now. That's a pretty good deal. We had seen these come all the way down to $49. That being said, it's really hard to find them in stock right now. So grab this or grab one of those A-tier rated 750 watt units if you want. All told, for $940 to $1,000, depending on the GPU of your choice, this is going to give you fantastic 1440p gaming performance now and into the future. And you're going to be on an upgradable platform. So in the future, you'll be able to drop in a 9800X3D or 1100X3D, whatever they call Zen 6X3D. You've got great upgradability for your GPU in the future as well. This is a gaming PC that's going to serve you for a long time. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. We've got Trifold Board. They're looking for a new build. Their budget is between $900 and $1,000 USD, and they're in the United States, and they need to include a monitor. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be a tight one. This is their very first build, and they're mainly playing what they call CPU-focused games, such as Minecraft and Roblox. I don't know how CPU intensive, but we'll talk about that in a second. It's currently too expensive, but I'm willing to buy used parts to save some money. I can already feel like we're running into problems here. I also plan on playing some competitive games like Valorant, CS2, Siege, and Fortnite, so a high refresh rate monitor would be preferred if the budget allows. They'd love for it to be AM5 for future upgrades, preferably. Okay, $900 to $1,000 on AM5, and you need a monitor? That's gonna be really tough, but let's see what you got. Lordy, what am I even looking at here? What am I talking about? Let's start off with the budget. $1,483.87. What is going on? You're like, Jason, I'm a little over budget. No, you're not a little over budget. You have completely exploded your budget here. We're 48.3% over our budget at this point. You need to make a decision. Either you need to come up with an extra $500 to finish this build, right? Because this is where you want to be. Or you need to say, Jason, I only got $1,000. Just tell me what's the best I can do for $1,000. We can do great for $1,000 with a monitor. It just may not meet your $1,500 expectations. So you got to balance that out. Now, what we're going to do, because obviously we can't get the feedback from you, we're going to go with the $1,000 budget. And let's focus in on some of the huge mistakes we made. Number one, let's start with the GPU. If you spent $1,500, now you got $300 in here for a monitor, so let's say $1,200. I would expect a much bigger GPU than an RX 7600 8GB GPU for $264. For the same reason I clowned on an RTX 4060 8GB GPU, I'm gonna clown on an RX 7600 8GB GPU. These GPUs should be well sub 200 at this point, and I would not buy a single one of them. Now, you decided to go AM5 here, and I already knew the budget was tight, and I don't have any problem with AM5, obviously. I love AM5. I love the Ryzen 7600X. I love the deal at Newegg right now where you get a free SSD, and it costs $194 with the SSD. That is an insane deal right now, but you still have to buy a DDR5 RAM, which is more expensive, about double the price of DDR4, and the AM5 motherboards are a little bit more money. Not that much more, but they're a little bit more money, and you will, of course, need an aftermarket cooler because I don't consider the Ray Stealth that comes with even the 7600. 7600X obviously doesn't come with any cooler. Even the Ray Stealth, not really adequate in my estimation to cool the 7600 with Precision Boost Overdrive, so that's another 20 bucks. So there's additional costs layered on. Yes, you do get future upgradability, but if you can't afford it, you just can't afford it. Here's some of the other problems I'm seeing, and I feel like some of the hesitancy to build a new build is, oh my gosh, what if it doesn't work? Especially from first time and returning builders who haven't built one in a while, who've never built one. What if it doesn't work? So they start reaching for all these name brand products or things that people say, oh, this is the best one to get. Yeah, it's the best one to get if you've got like $3,000 for your build, but you don't. So you're gonna have to pick some value picks here. The Arctic Liquid Freezer 3 240, while $76 sounds pretty good for a 240 millimeter all-in-one liquid cooler, and this is a great cooler, by the way, this is not a value pick. This is not a value pick. You needed to really go with like an $18 air cooler at this point. We're gonna make some better decisions. For the motherboard, Gigabyte B650 Eagle AX, I mean, look, right now, like a lot of motherboards are sold out as I'm doing this towards the holiday shopping period's almost over, and stock has been cleared out. A lot of things are out of stock. This isn't the worst choice in the world, $159. I do often recommend this is like my second or third tier choice if you can't find anything else, and those other things are sold out. That being said, I would have gone micro ATX here to save a lot more money, and I would have looked to spend more like $130. There's a lot of Corsair parts. Just brace yourself. The Corsair Virus is in full effect here. We spent $120 on a RAM kit with no RGB that we could have gotten from another vendor out there for like $80. Why are we buying Corsair Vengeance? We have just kind of name brand ourselves right into a really expensive budget. I want people to stop buying hard drives. It's 2025. Stop buying hard drives. If you are putting together a gaming PC, hard drives should not even be in your vocabulary. I always get one person out there, Jason, hard drives are still good for this very, very niche use case. Yes, great. We're not talking about that niche use case. We're talking about building a gaming PC, and we're talking about spending $65 on 2 terabytes of storage. You can almost get 2 terabytes of storage, an NVMe SSD Gen 3 or Gen 4 out there. There should be no thought about hard drive in these builds anymore. Just erase it from your memory banks. And then I feel like we did the exact opposite. Obviously, you intended this to be our boot drive here, our Samsung 990 Pro 1 terabyte for $120. Again, I think just the fear of a new build, and I get it. You want this thing to work. Trust me, we're gonna get a value pick here. It's gonna cost a third the price for 1 terabyte. It's gonna be just fine. Is it gonna be like this drive? No, of course not. In gaming, they're gonna be the same. If you're a high-end video editor and you do this professionally, I would say get this drive that you have here, but you're not. You're a budget gamer. Let's get a budget gaming drive that's gonna work just fine for you for like $48. More Corsair parts here, Corsair 4000D Airflow. This is not a case for your budget. It's not a case for your budget. You need more fans, by the way, but we can do a lot better. The other thing is, if we don't go with an ATX motherboard, if we go micro ATX, we can also save some money. Corsair RM850, another Corsair part here, and I get it, $109, this is actually not a bad value, but you do not need 850 watts. I mean, again, this is a great PSU. If we needed 850 watts, I would say, good job, great pick. But I'm not gonna say that because we don't need this much power. I think 650 watts is where we actually wanna end up, probably on the C tier rather than the A tier as well. Finally, your monitor, the Acer VG. I'm not really familiar with this one, but for 300 bucks, I'm not even sure we need 240 hertz on this build. Although I will say monitor prices absolutely collapsed over the holiday shopping season. They have come back up, but not to the level they were before. So we might be able to find you a good deal, but I'm thinking like, let's go for maybe 160 to 180 hertz instead. So all told, for almost 1,500 bucks, almost $1,500, we are getting a CPU GPU combo from like, that makes my eyes bleed. We've massively overspent on our storage. We've gotten a hard drive in 2025. We've massively overspent on name brand parts like Corsair out there, gotten some incomplete things. We need more fans for our build, and we haven't even finished off at $1,500, which is 500 bucks over your budget. We can do so much better. here. I call this the $1,000 1440p gaming PC with a 240 hertz gaming monitor. Yes, we are actually going to get you a 240 hertz monitor, although if you want to go cheaper on that, I'll give you some other options here. I finished out at $994.55. $994.55. Look at that. We're actually under your $1,000 budget. Hallelujah. The amount of performance we're going to get out of this PC is just crazy, crazy better than the $1,500 thing that you were going to build. Let's jump into what else? The GPU. Now listen, I went with just what I could get right now before AMD and NVIDIA announced their new GPUs. And it's currently available. You can buy off the shelf right now. It's the RX 6700 XT 12 gigabyte GPU. It's anywhere between $309 and $299, depending on where you find it. Right now, it's at $309. I think when I filmed the other build, the other one, it was $299. It just keeps floating. It's pretty good value still at $300 out there. 12 gigabytes of VRAM. I will say the architecture, obviously a little older, lacks AV1 encoding, but it's a great GPU. Now your other alternatives are kind of mixed here right now because you can't necessarily grab all of them. In terms of the Intel Arc B580, I wish I could tell you could get one of these. They have consistently been out of stock even now, just after Christmas. I'm filming this, probably going to be into January until we see stock of them. Yeah, a little tougher here, but you certainly could wait for this GPU. Other current options are like the RX 7600 XT 16 gigabyte. The cheapest one I can find is somewhere between $300 and $310. Right now it's the ASRock RX 7600 XT Challenger. Again, 16 gigabyte GPU. Not a terrible deal at $309. Not as fast, obviously, as the 6700 XT. And then if you want to spend even more money, if you come up with another $100 or $200, you could go with an RX 7700 XT. They're getting thinner, $389 to $400 right now. It's possible they're all going to completely sell out ahead of RDNA 4 being announced, and that's obviously the big thing hanging over all this. If you wait until January 6th, it might be that AMD announces an RX, now they're going to call it the 9060 XT. I hate the name. I hate it, AMD. I don't know why you're doing that, but it could be that is a much faster GPU for cheaper than this. How much FPS do you get for about, I guess, $750, given where we're going with the monitor right now? Well, this is the Tech Power Up Intel Arc B580 GPU review. So relatively fresh data, as fresh as you can get basically, and just some different data. They use 23 games here at Tech Power Up versus the ones we just looked at in the previous build. You can see here the Intel Arc B580, they found 61 average FPS, doing pretty well out there. The RX 7600 XT, 16 gigabyte, 56 average FPS. Again, these are ultra details. You can always turn the settings down and get a lot more frames. And in particular, the games you're looking to play, these GPUs are just going to give you tons and tons of frames out there. Obviously, especially like Valorant, you'll probably get like 400 FPS. The RX 6700 XT, and this is 1440p, slightly faster than the Intel Arc B580. But look, 7700 XT out there at 80 average FPS, 81 average FPS. Now you can imagine where the RX 9060 XT from AMD Radeon that they're likely to announce is going to come in. People are saying that's about where it's going to come in terms of performance, and the price is going to be, you know, in that kind of sub $300 price bracket. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But that's kind of a range of performance that we're considering. Now, for the rest of the system, you have a big decision point here. Now, I've gone AM4 for value. For value right now, I will say AM5 is only about another $120 to $150 away, but it will put you over the budget, especially with the monitor that we've picked. We'll talk about that in just a second. But if you've decided, Jason, all I got is $1,000 and I definitely want that 240 hertz gaming monitor, which, spoiler alert, I was able to squeeze in here, then I would go AM4 here, or you can go Intel 12400F as well. Let's talk about the monitor. Now, you could go with a monitor like this, the Acer Nitro XV271U. It's a monitor I recommend. It's got down to $169, but it's only back up $9 over its Black Friday price right now. It's a great value, $178 right now for insane 1440p performance. Mid-level 1440p performance that would have cost a couple of $100 more. This is 1080p land a couple years ago. Now this is where 1440p gaming monitors reside. That being said, I decided let's just go ahead and reach up and get you a 240 hertz gaming monitor. The AOC CQ27G3Z, it's curved, it's VA, but it is a phenomenal curved VA panel. Now, I will say they're phenomenal 180 hertz, one that has local dimming zones and has some HDR capabilities. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's only a little bit more expensive. You could also look at that. But for $251, I think this is a really, really good compromise if you want 240 hertz, because also whenever you upgrade your GPU or your system in the future, you can keep this monitor, which is a really good performer. Now, because we went with that more expensive monitor and we didn't have enough money to get to AM5, again, we went with the Ryzen 5 5600. It's only up to $118 right now, which is 2 thumbs up right now, 2 thumbs up, and it comes with an included stock cooler. Don't worry about the 5600 or the 5600X, just get the cheaper of the two. You're gonna turn on Precision Boost Overdrive and they basically both run the same. These are great CPUs, and this is gonna give you an upgrade path to a 5700X 3D in the future. Now, we're gonna just go with a cheap B550 motherboard out here. Don't get any of those motherboards that say Gen 3 on them. Those are actually B450 motherboards in disguise. I went with the Asus Prime B550 M-A Wi-Fi 2. There's the regular version of this, the non-2 version. It just has Wi-Fi 5 instead of Wi-Fi 6. I spent an extra $10 to get you Wi-Fi 6 on here. Some of the other great value AM4 budget motherboards that I normally recommend, completely sold out of stock right now, but I do expect them to come back in the intervening weeks. So if you want to wait a little bit, I'll leave a couple linked down in the video description. You can check those out. Otherwise, this is also not a bad option. For the RAM, we are going value, 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 value. I want you to lock into that word value out there. We're going to go with DDR4 3200 CL16, and this is a 32 gigabyte kit. You don't have to worry about micro stuttering and some of those newer AAA titles out there. We're going to get 32 gigs because it's only $45. It is like you were going to spend $120 on DDR5 RAM, and yet I'm not trashing DDR5 RAM. I'm just saying you were going to spend 3 times as much for the same capacity. This is going to be perfectly adequate for what we're doing, and it's going to allow us to get a much bigger GPU. In the meantime, grab this for 45 bucks. We're going to go with the Silicon Power A60 for $48. Here's the great news. You get 2 NVMe slots on that motherboard. If you decide at some point that 1 terabyte is not enough storage for you in the future, go out and buy a 2 terabyte version of this drive for like $88 right now. $88 for 2 terabytes. For the PC case, we got a lot of options out there. I wanted to do something a little different. I went with the Sama ARGB Q5. So it's got 3 included fans. It actually comes with enough fans for the case. They're ARGB. These are not PWM, by the way, but they're DC current controlled. That's really not that much difference in my estimation. Not much else to say about it. It's $58, $58. For the power supply, just a little discrepancy in the build you just saw. As I clicked into it to do this little segment, it had sold out. It is sold out, unfortunately. So I got you one. It's only $6 more, but it's a great PSU. It's the MSI Mag A650BN. Now, I will say this PSU, they're charging a lot for it right now, but it's only $69. It's 650 watts to 750 watts, another 20 bucks. I think this is really where you want to be. It comes with 1 EPS power cable for the top of the motherboard. So if you do get a motherboard that has 2 EPS cables, you might want a different power supply. That being said, most of them don't require it. You just plug in the one that's closest to the VRM heatsink there. And it comes with 2 PCIe cables for your GPU. So overall, it's a really good unit for 70 bucks, C-tier rated. So with the updated power supply, $1,000.92, $1,000.92, you're gonna get an amazingly performative 1440p gaming PC, either with a GPU that you can buy right now, or if you want to wait for something that AMD or NVIDIA potentially announces on January 6th, you can do that. We got you a 240 hertz gaming monitor, or you could go down to the 1440p 180 hertz to save some money. Jump up to AM5 if you want. We've gotten you on a platform that has future upgradability and is perfectly adequate for the GPU level that we're at. And it's got RGB. It's going to look amazing too. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description. Check those out for current pricing and availability in your region. If you got value out of the video, please give it a like. It really does make a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe for more cool PC content, like our look at 2025 GPU launches. They're coming fast, they're coming furious, and 2025 CPU launches right here. Check them out, and we'll catch you on the next one.